I'm Nick Urban, here with Brian Richards of SaunaSpace. We are spending the weekend at Biohacking Congress, a fabulous event of 30 plus top speakers in the health, the wellness, and biohacking space, as well as a bunch of vendors for everything you could want. Brian, it's great to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Nick.
I like to start off these every time with the same set of questions, just as a warm-up. But what have you done so far today for your health, your performance, and your bioharmony?
I did a sauna session this morning, a quick one. I had a matcha, which I really like. Kind of getting away from coffee, actually. It's just every day, long term, it's no good. But sunlight. So when I wake up in the morning, I make sure. Right now, I'm staying in a hotel. And I make sure, because all the blue light, all the sources of light in the hotel room are all LED light. So I always make sure that I turn my photon light on, my portable therapy light, and get the infrared red light into my eyes before any blue light touches my body or my eyes. And that's a way of calibrating your day. So that's a really important thing to do no matter where you are. If you do the alternative, wake up, grab your phone, and get the blue light, you're stressing out your body and like kind of programming it in the wrong way for the whole day. So I always make sure to do that. And then, when you travel, it's hard to eat well.
Yeah.
So I got lucky today though, because I had a matcha and then I had a ramen for lunch. So I had some healthy food. That's pretty good for traveling.
Yeah. Yeah, you're on the road right now, but all of those things you just listed are fairly biologically compatible, ancestrally compatible, the light especially. And this morning, I myself was thinking the same thing. I'm gonna eat clean, drink a bit, get some light, but do I do the sauna, yes or no? And my thinking was no today because we were gonna be inside and I was probably gonna be very hot, so I chose not to. But let's talk a bit about sauna usage now. And as anyone watching can see, you have the word SaunaSpace on your shirt. So tell me about your origins into the sauna world.
Yeah, I'm like everybody else. I just wanted to look and feel better. And I had some health problems that led to me creating a modern version of the electric light bath. It's actually Dr. John Harvey Kellogg's invention from 1891. So a couple years after incandescent bulbs were invented in their modern form, Dr. Kellogg looked at these bulbs and said, oh my goodness, we should make a sauna out of it. There's something special about the light. He had zero understanding of the mitochondria back then, but he wrote about it. So he invented what he called the electric incandescent light bath in 1891. He used it subsequently in Battle Creek, Michigan at his sanitarium on like 50,000 chronically ill patients. He documented over 200,000 sauna sessions. And then he wrote a book about it called Light Therapeutics, published in 1910. So you can read about how he just treated and healed all these different chronic illnesses, from skin issues to depression to neuropsychiatric stuff to gut problems and everything you can imagine. And I discovered this concept in a search for a natural healing solution because I didn't want to take pharmaceutical drugs for my problems. I had acne and insomnia and mind racing. I was lethargic. I had all the classical symptoms of adrenal fatigue. So I first found sauna and detox and like, oh, purify the body, get rid of poisons. Maybe that's the problem I have. Maybe that's the solution. And then I found his concept at the end of my research. So I built my own and I used it 2 times and it cured my insomnia. 2 times.
2 times.
Well, by the 3rd day, I was just sleeping well. And so it's like, wow, I'm not having trouble falling asleep and I'm waking up rested. So then I subsequently had the motivation to use it with a lot of discipline for like 6 months. And at the end of that, I realized that it healed all these things that I wasn't even really aware that I was lethargic. I wasn't aware that I had brain fog, really. I just kind of felt like, meh. And after that period, I had more energy than I've ever had, more patience, and more like qualitative stuff like outlook. Like my mood was just consistently better and more like flow state all the time and more calm and more centered, more aligned. And that was the start. I was like, why can't you buy this technology? Why can't you get this type of sauna? Where is it? So I formed the company SaunaSpace, and that was 10 years ago. And I poured my heart and soul into just trying to make one thing right for a while now. And now I think our success is demonstrated in how popular our product is now and how much we've grown and how effective our approach is to sauna. Saunas are so amazing. So there's so much research out there, but really I think the best way to put it is that sauna increases your health span. It increases the years of your life in which you're healthy. It reduces your risk of dying of all things. It also reduces your risk of dementia. And those are large cohort, long-term human studies that are showing this. It's one of the only things in the therapeutic world that can claim to do both those things. So that's just sauna. But the technology that I use, the incandescent light bulb, I had no idea in the beginning how all this light therapy stuff going on too, which is subsequently part of, that's a big part of our success, is it's a quicker sweat, it's a faster sauna session. To get the sauna outcome is to sweat 1 pound of water out and raise core temperature 3 degrees. If you do that 3 times a week in whatever sauna tech you use, you'll achieve those sauna benefits, those longevity benefits.
So those are the parameters that matter most. It's not necessarily 18 minutes in your sauna at this temperature to get that outcome.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because you're thinking, well, what is the benefit of doing sauna? It's provoking some effect in the body. So you can use a sauna, a sweat lodge, a spa. You can sit in a hot tub, and you can achieve the same thing, raising core temperature in a sustained fashion, while the body's kind of like passive and resting. And you get this, and the best way to measure it, I think, is that's really cool. Anyone can do that at home. You measure yourself on a digital scale before and after a sauna session. The water you sweat out is, the weight loss you measure is the water you sweat out. So 1 to 2 pounds of water is what all the long-term sauna studies indicate. And correlating that with a 3-degree temperature increase, that's proportional to how much water you sweat out, basically.
Yeah.
So then the third outcome you can also measure is more qualitative. It's called subjective exhaustion. So you have this in exercise too. When you work really hard on the treadmill or something like that and you start to feel uncomfortable and you really feel the burn, you're like, oh, I want to be done. I want to be done. So that is because you're producing these things called Dinorphins. So if you can stay in and that workout a little longer, you get more Dinorphins produced. The same thing in the sauna. If you reach a state of subjective exhaustion where you're like, wow, I've had enough, and you can stay in for just a couple more minutes, you maximize your production of Dinorphins. And Dinorphins are directly proportional to how many endorphins are produced after the sauna or after the exercise. So the more discomfort at the end of your sauna session, the better you feel afterwards. So that's the third thing you can measure that's more qualitative. But the weight loss thing with the scale, and then just measuring with a thermometer your body temperature 2 to 3, maybe even 4 degrees off your baseline, and you're getting that same outcome. The question is, Nick, how am I heating the body up?
Yeah.
How fast is it heating me up? How effective is it? What environment is it in? Is it an environment that's enjoyable and tolerable, or is it an environment that's humid and claustrophobic? So these are all, there's all these roads lead to Rome, right? But what's the quickest way? And I stumbled upon the quickest way. Using incandescent light is the fastest way to heat human tissue. And that's why in agriculture, farmers have used incandescent heat lamps to heat livestock for 100 years. It is the most effective way to do it. It's not a far infrared emitter or an LED or a space heater. It's actually near infrared light from an incandescent bulb, because the near infrared light is what penetrates deep. So we see that it's called the absorption window of the human body. So our bodies have things in them that absorb light, and they do so for protection. So if you look at the absorption window on the wavelength spectrum, the things in the body that absorb ultraviolet light and blue light are hemoglobin and melanin. Yeah. Melanin in the skin, hemoglobin in the blood. And that protects us from too much penetration of too much ultraviolet, which is very damaging to us. And then on the other side of this optical window is water. So we're 70% water by weight, we're 99% water volumetrically, and water is absorbing most of the infrared and all of the mid and far infrared. But water's absorption begins at 980 nanometers, right in the middle of the near infrared spectrum. So the near infrared, this is kind of like complicated quantum mechanics, but essentially near infrared light is only partially absorbed by water and therefore penetrates very deeply. So with when you have a near infrared photon, like from my product from a thermalite bulb, when that photon hits your body, it has the chance of penetrating 4 to 5 inches into your body, and will do so most of the time. It'll eventually either be absorbed by a water molecule or hit the light receptor protein in the mitochondria and trigger the mitochondrial stimulation effects. If you once you get past 1500 nanometers, so near infrared is 700 to 1500 nanometers, red light is 600 to 700 nanometers. So mitochondrial stimulation, the wavelengths that are absorbed by the mitochondrial light receptor protein, are 600 to 1000 nanometers, all of red light, and the higher end of near infrared. The lower end of near infrared is what is the optimal heating wavelengths that are deeply penetrating into the body. Once you get past 1500 nanometers, you get into a mid-infrared range where the water absorption becomes much stronger, and because the water absorption of light is much stronger, the wavelengths of mid-infrared and far infrared don't penetrate deeply into the body. They only penetrate like a millimeter or two, versus, again, near infrared is penetrating many inches into the body. So the farmers understood this a long time ago, and I stumbled upon this. Well, and Dr. Kellogg figured it out.
Yeah.
But I stumbled upon this, and that's why what we do causes you to heat up quickly, but in a stimulating, enjoyable way, not in like a stressful way or something like that. So in my sauna, you only do a 20 or 25-minute session, and there's no preheating. In these saunas that are powered by far infrared wavelengths, or a Finnish sauna, a classical, a hot rock sauna, you have to heat the air up hot to 170 degrees, and you have to be in there for 45 minutes.
Yeah.
So in the SaunaSpace sauna, you're in there half the time. And then there's other things too. It's like, okay, these are all different ways to heat the body. So what else is relevant? A lot of people can't sit in a 170-degree sauna. They have some sort of illness or thermoregulatory problem that prevents them. They're compromised. And so you tell them all day long, use a sauna, it's really good for your health, and they can't use it. Whereas my sauna, it only operates, the air temperature is only like 110 degrees or 120. So it's a very gentle environment in which someone like who has autoimmune issues or other issues can access sauna therapy.
Do you not get additional benefits from heating the body up radiantly to 170 plus degrees? Is it purely a matter of getting the core body temperature up?
Yeah, well, you're never heating the body up to 170 degrees. The base body temperature is 98.6 for a healthy person.
With the air being 170 degrees in like a traditional sauna.
Well, that's the big argument. So to argue against that, there are Chinese and Japanese sauna suit studies where they just basically wear this foil jogging suit, and they had incredible thermoregulatory outcomes where they had improvement. They're seeing the same cardiovascular improvements that you would see in a Finnish sauna session. And all they're doing is wearing this bag. And there's many other types of hyperthermia, this is called. There's like these gun things that like it can do hyperthermia in a localized fashion. You see those at German and Mexican cancer clinics.
Wow.
And of course there's far infrared, and there's the sun, and there's these hot tubs, and there's near infrared saunas. And there's sweat lodges, which don't use any light at all to heat the body. And yet they're all achieving the same outcome if the participant is heated up enough that they sweat. Mm-hmm. And that's the conclusion out of the Rhonda Patrick study that came out last year, where it was like frequent sauna use increases your health span or something like that. And it was that it doesn't matter what way you heat the body up. All that matters is that you heat it up in a sustained fashion such that you sweat and you raise core temperature.
But you're also getting additional benefits from near infrared because it penetrates deeply and activates the mitochondria.
Yeah, that's that whole light therapy stuff. The whole world of red light therapy that now has really taken the world by storm. there's there's a couple thousand sauna studies in the PubMed, but there's like over 7,000 light therapy studies that are published, and even it's really incredible. So what's exciting about that is here we have a built-in healing and repair and rejuvenation and anti-aging system that's in every cell of the body, including the nerve cells and the like pretty much every cell of the body except red blood cells. So what activates it is near infrared light and red light. And so we have many ways to get that nowadays, many cool technologies. Of course, what's the basis of all that? That's heliotherapy. So it's our experience with the sun. So the sun has 40% near infrared spectrally, but because of that deep penetration of near infrared, when you stand in front of the sun, in terms of photons per second that your body experiences, it's 70% near infrared. It's not much ultraviolet. It's mostly near infrared. And so you get two things from near infrared light. You get the mitochondrial stimulation, which has inflammation reduction effects, regenerative effects, anti-aging effects. It fuels the cell, so it gives your cells energy. It improves blood circulation and tissue oxygenation. It's like all these amazing things. It promotes immune modulation, so it makes your immune system work better. It doesn't jack it up or suppress it. It actually reprograms it to work better. But probably the least well understood effect is not the mitochondrial stimulation. It's the melatonin production. So it's recently it's only recently now understood that first of all, melatonin is the body's number one antioxidant. Yeah. Major important molecule. And previously, it was thought that most of the melatonin was like in the heart or the lungs or the liver and then primarily from the pineal gland, blood-based melatonin being released. It turns out that 94% of the body's melatonin production occurs cellularly. It's cellular melatonin, and guess what activates the production? Near infrared light, and it's all produced right on the mitochondrial membrane, right where 95% of the body's free radicals are produced during cellular respiration. So the cell has this perfect system of dealing with all of the free radicals that are being produced by using the body's number one antioxidant and producing it right there on the site where it needs it. And all you have to do is get a nice dose of near infrared light. Unfortunately, look where we're at right now. We all live indoors, so we don't get the sun. So, you talked about biohacking or bioharmonizing, is probably a better way to put it. We need tools to mimic this ancestral experience that we no longer have. And so if we can't get sun is the best thing. Mm-hmm. If we can't get sun every day, or we have days where we can't get it at all, then the next best thing is the incandescent lamp for near infrared light exposure.
I had no idea, and Dr. John Lieurance has a book called The Melatonin Miracle, and he extols all the benefits of melatonin, but at the same time, and he uses clinically very high dose melatonin with his patients to great success, and he claims that it doesn't have the same feedback loop that other hormones in the body do. But I feel a little bit uneasy about taking exogenous melatonin in huge super physiological dosage. So it's awesome. I didn't realize that you can just get near infrared light and have a similar protective effect.
Yeah, the body's designed to make all the melatonin it needs if it gets lots of sunlight. And we're talking about sunlight on the whole body, not just the face.
Yeah.
So if you live in Florida or Texas and you can be outside with your shirt off, then you're good. If not, then yeah, we need other ways to kind of induce that same effect. And the near infrared light is from the sauna that I make is really one of the most effective ways. Plus, you're already doing a sauna. You're already there to do a sauna, so you're getting so much benefit at the same time that you're doing your sauna session. It's so important. Actually, the melatonin is such an interesting thing, and actually, there's methylene blue that we should throw in too.
I always out of my tongue
because you mentioned Dr. Lieurance. So methylene blue is really interesting. He may have mentioned that to you. That's where the phrase the silver bullet was coined.
Yeah.
Was for methylene blue.
Yeah.
Isn't that fascinating?
Yeah.
So methylene blue was invented in 1876, I think, shortly before the incandescent bulb was invented, and shortly before the electric light bath was invented. And they found out really quickly that, and it's the world's first drug that was invented, excuse me, and they found out a couple decades later that it was very effective for treating malaria. And they were using it in World War I to treat the soldiers for malaria. There's like a World War I war poem, a war song, like they would sing. It was like "Peeing blue in the loo" or something like that. And so it kind of fell, and then it kind of disappeared for a while. But its relevance to what we're talking about is that methylene blue is photoactivated by near-infrared light. So methylene blue upregulates like 3 out of the 4 mitochondrial membrane proteins very strongly. It doesn't upregulate the cytochrome C protein very well. And that's the cytochrome is cell of light. That's the light receptor protein that we're talking about that absorbs near-infrared light and stimulates mitochondrial responses. So you can take methylene blue and then get out in the sun, and you can make the methylene blue work better in your body. Yeah. And I just find that so fascinating that it's almost like in the sauna, it's the only drug I would recommend that works really well with our product. You can take it 20 or 30 minutes before you get in the sauna, and you can maximize the effectiveness of the methylene blue, going into the mitochondria and doing its thing. And I think it also helps with the sauna session itself. So it's a great complement, and it's so interesting because it is a completely synthetic drug, but it's being used in a widespread fashion for infectious disease treatment, like what is it, ivermectin? Yeah. Ivermectin is methylene blue without the blue.
Yeah.
And ivermectin won all the Nobel Prizes for treating, I think, malaria or yeah. So here, 120 years ago, it was all figured out. Incandescent light saunas, all this, I wouldn't call it ancestral wisdom, but really well understood science that dates back a long time that's kind of was forgotten in history for a long time.
Yeah, I stuck my tongue out at you a second ago because I don't know if I still have the remnants of blue on my tongue, but I took some methylene blue earlier today, and when I'm going to be outside walking around in sunlight or taking a nice long sauna session or doing any of those things, I like to combine the two.
Yeah.
It's
wonderful.
You mentioned one thing a second ago that I want to circle back to, and that is the term heliotherapy.
Yeah, heliotherapy. So sun. So sun therapy. What's a good way to so let's talk about the Spanish flu, 1917. So the Surgeon General of Massachusetts in 1919, after the Spanish flu pandemic, which was the worst pandemic worldwide until recently, I guess, it was a big deal. He published a study in 1919, and guess what he concluded was the best way to treat post-influenza pneumonia? Sunlight and fresh air. Sunlight. So there's also, like in the Eastern, I mentioned this earlier during my talk, in the Eastern traditions, there's these cults that are called light eaters, where they go outside predominantly naked, and they just are out in the sun like this for 15 days, and they just drink a little bit of water. They consume no food. Yeah. And they're eating light. And so we're light eaters. We're designed to consume light directly into our cells. And certainly the most effective way to do that is the sun. I mean, the sun nourishes all life on Earth, and yet we put on sunscreen and we hide away from it and we forget about it, and it's so healing. All these things that I'm talking about that light therapy does, that comes from the sun. And you might say, well, the sun has ultraviolet light and blue light. Well, it does, but it has this huge healing component at the same time that's constantly nourishing you. And so if you have a good relationship with the sun, you can maximize your benefit of the healing wavelengths and minimize your exposure to too much maybe ultraviolet blue light, like, for example, getting morning sun. Mm-hmm. And then depending on your color of your skin, how much sun you get. A dark-skinned person needs 3 or 4 times the amount of sun exposure that you and I need, us being, well, you're paler than I am, but it's very much a thing. They have, the darker skin has so much melanin in it that's protecting you a lot from the sun. So the most powerful healing tool we have is the sun, and it's free, and it's out there for us all day long if we know how to use it. And when you want to be outside and you're getting too much sun exposure and you need to protect yourself, the best thing is not sunscreen. It's just a hat and a long sleeve shirt.
I think the origins of the word and the practice heliotherapy date back a long time ago, though.
Oh yeah. So in some of the Ayurvedic tradition, there's a lot of heliotherapy. In the Egyptian tradition, in the Greek tradition, people were going out and using sun for like back in the Civil War in America, they came to the shocking conclusion that the patients that they were treating, like amputee and other like wound patients, that instead of putting them in a tent, if they just had them outside laying in the sun, the survival rates like doubled. And so yes, there's a lot of ancestral wisdom there. In fact, if we talk about the Ayurvedic tradition, we should talk about Agni hotra a little bit. So Agni hotra is a Hindu sort of Ayurvedic ritual where you have a bonfire and you cast the sacred ghee into it at sunrise or sunset, and the sun's rays of the sunrise and sunset hit the ghee and cast healing energy onto the person that's sitting in front of the fire. And you can mimic Agni hotra with the SaunaSpace, with the photon light, or with the SaunaSpace sauna by just being in front of it. You're staring it's just like staring into the sunset. And so the Agni hotra, the ghee and all that, yes, but it's this ancestral understanding of the power of the light at sunrise and sunset. The light at sunrise and sunset has much more near infrared and red in it versus ultraviolet blue than at the zenith of the day, at noon. So they understood that, and heliotherapy is the oldest form of light therapy that there is.
I love that. I didn't realize you know some Ayurveda also.
Yeah, well, they just all this stuff was figured out a long time ago. And I love how nowadays, like, modern instrumentation and modern observation is revalidating, all this stuff. And, we're so skeptical nowadays with the scientific method, and it has a lot of power to it. It's very, deductive. It's very, it's great. But it's more or less just validating what our ancestors knew and how to care for themselves without pharmaceutical drugs and without surgical intervention and other forms of just, modern conventional standard of care. The most effective solutions are actually the simplest ones. Sunlight, sauna, like healthy food, going to bed on time, having a lot of love in your life, not being stressful or holding on to emotions and stress. I think that's something that we don't talk about much, and it's something that's, I think, from a Western perspective, the least respected, but the energetic and emotional origin and nature of trauma and of ill health. And the Klinghardt model, Dietrich Klinghardt, he has the pyramid, and the physical health is the base of the pyramid. And then there's the emotional health, and the energetic health is at the top. And many times we can, and there's many modalities. There's, ART, the Klinghardt approach. There's applied kinesiology. There's various approaches to clearing emotional trauma. And there actually is scientific validation in this too. Now, the autonomic nervous system holds trauma. And sometimes there's even this crazy concept of inherited trauma.
Yes.
Ancestral DNA trauma. And there's also scientific validation of that. It's called epigenetic inheritance. So, especially from our mother's side, we inherit the mitochondrial the mitochondria has its own DNA. And we don't just inherit the genes themselves, we inherit the 3D structure in which the genes sit, and that's called the epigenetics. And that's has it's a big factor in which genes are expressed and which aren't. And what's really fascinating is you can actually correct that. You can correct emotional and energetic trauma, and it will actually change your epigenetic state of your. And so you can actually, this whole idea that the sins of the fathers are not passed on to the son, they actually are.
Yeah.
Through epigenetic inheritance. But you can correct that, and that's not my expertise at all. But I think that so much of these physiological problems, like the sauna is so helpful, the light therapy is so helpful, but it really needs to come in conjunction with looking at, who you are, who I am, why am I in ill health, and living an ancestral lifestyle in the modern context. It's not hard, but it takes a good understanding of these nuances. How did our ancestors live? What are these additional environmental exposure we have nowadays, like EMF exposure, and how to thrive and have the health of our ancestors, but have all the benefits of modern life.
Yeah.
I love some of the technology we have. I would never give it up, but I understand that my body is 10 or maybe 100,000 years old biologically. It's programmed to be in a very particular environment that we don't have nowadays.
Yeah. Our genetics don't keep up with our lifestyle changes, and the epigenetics gets passed down, and it can be very hard to correct the physical plane when you have traumas governing your life. And so I love the low-hanging fruit that allow you to address some of this stuff without having to radically change your lifestyle, and little additions here, little removals here. And the sauna for me has been one of those tools as well. You can do multiple things while you're in it. You can meditate in it, and it really just amplifies whatever you're doing or not doing.
It does. I'm glad you brought up meditation, and we didn't talk about that. So if you're already in the sauna and you have this beautiful firelight, this campfire light that's so relaxing, why not do a little breath work? Why not do a little meditation? We know now, and that's also well documented, the power of breath work and meditation in healing the body and correcting the programming of the nervous system, and actually bringing physiological healing effects to the whole body. So when you're in the sauna, it's a perfect time because you're by yourself. If you choose our Faraday sauna, for example, you're completely protected from ambient EMF. Even our basic sauna has a grounding mat in it, so you're getting some grounding therapy. But ultimately, there's additional aspects of my sauna design that I think are really important. There's no glass door. There's no outside world that can look in and stress you out. There's no track lighting and Bluetooth speakers and stuff like that. You can bring a phone in on airplane mode and listen to a guided meditation, for example. But when you're in there, just doing basic breath work, and there's so many awesome modalities out there that you can choose from, has its own amazing benefit. And when you do meditation routinely, and if you're already doing the sauna routinely, you are routinely doing some meditative practice, you're just accelerating the healing that's potential, or that you can potentially have in a 20-minute experience. Grounding therapy, sauna therapy, detox therapy, light therapy, sensory deprivation therapy, meditation. It's kind of the escape. We don't take time to ourselves. The Western culture is very much focused on achievement and success, like your plaques on the wall and your accolades and your car and your barbecue and the amazing family you have and everything, and less focused on the self. There's this misnomer that engaging in self-care is selfish, and it's not selfish. It's self-oriented, because when you take care of yourself and your house is not on fire, then you're in a position to take care of other people. And sometimes, that's a hard choice, to have to take care of yourself first before you take care of someone else, especially if you have a serious health issue going on. Yeah.
One thing that's kind of related to the topic of EMFs, I heard a long time ago that when you're going to go into a sauna, the big difference in terms of detoxification is that you are not in the same like hormonal neuroendocrine state. You don't have like sky high epinephrine or cortisol or any of those. You're able to more effectively release toxins. And would EMFs be one of those like external stressors that prevents you from like, detoxing to the full extent or enjoying all the benefits of saunas?
Yeah, absolutely. Man-made EMF, non-native EMF is a nervous stressor. It basically, the electric field triggers the the voltage-gated calcium ion channels to open, causes too much calcium to flood into the cell, which creates too many superoxides, which leads to the production of peroxynitrite, a reactive nitrogenous species that has a very strong, long half-life that then can penetrate your DNA and or penetrate your nucleus and cause free radical formation in the nucleic water, which is a long-winded way of saying it damages your DNA like X-rays.
Yeah.
And so it's doing it 24 hours a day whenever you're exposed to it. And when you're in the sauna, yes, I mean, for the same reason that you wouldn't meditate in a polluted space, why would you do your healing therapy in a stressful space? And EMFs are really tricky, Nick, because they don't, you can't see them. They're not easy to perceive. If you're a sensitive person, you can perceive them. And there are some people who are they're electro hypersensitive. Or maybe they're just really healthy and they can sense things that, us toxic people, can't. But you have this thing that's in the environment around you. It's here right now. It's stressing you out. And yet there's no lion, there's no bear for you to respond to and run away from. So it's like a cognitive dissonance that you are engaging in, where you're saying, no, everything's fine, but your cells are saying, no, we're being stressed out, dude, what's going on? And I think absolutely it's the new silent spring. I think it's one of the biggest environmental stress problems that we have in our lives. It's growing with the implementation of 5G and 6G and 7G that's coming. And yeah, if you could protect yourself in your sauna session and not have it in there, then yeah, that's the way you want to do it. So I've incorporated that into my product design, electromagnetic shielding, for many years now. So all of our electrical light panels are EMF shielded. So there's no electrical or electric field or magnetic field stress on the person from the product. But then I kind of took it up a notch and started developing and eventually offered the Faraday product, which has a silver-based fabric that lines the entire sauna, and it's grounded along with the grounding mat to the light panel's ground. So when you get inside the SaunaSpace Faraday sauna, you're inside a grounded Faraday cage that basically blocks out all these man-made EMFs and allows the body to fully heal. Now, I don't have any independent studies on that for sure, but the fact that man-made EMF has an influence on the body that's adverse is very well documented. That's Dr. Martin Paul's work. It's just right now it's just a question of correlation with disease, which will come in the next 10 years and 20 years as we have more long-term studies. But yeah, it's a big problem, and you need to be aware of it, and you don't want it in your sauna.
Yeah. It's almost like you're getting the cleanliness, the pristineness of being in like the woods, but only better because now you're getting Starlink and other things radiating down on you.
Yeah, and that's not to, let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. Any sauna session for a person is going to be way better than someone not doing a sauna. So, even if you can't afford to have a sauna at home, you could pour the hottest water you could in your bathtub and get in it and wait till it cools down, and you're doing like a mild sauna session. All these things are great tools. Don't get overwhelmed with, I have to do everything or I'm going to die.
Yeah.
Big change comes one day at a time with small steps. So you start out with just being aware of these things and starting to change one day at a time. The easiest thing, without buying anything, is changing your relationship to the sun. Mm-hmm. And then changing your relationship to artificial light, especially after dark. Not having any blue light after 9 or 10 p.m. especially is such a huge thing. Male testosterone is just severely affected by getting blue light late at night. So those are easy things to correct. And then a lot of people use my photon as like a campfire indoors and use that for light after dark instead of the ambient, the overhead lights, so that you have some light inside so you can enjoy your time indoors with your friends and family, and you don't have to worry about blue light or flickering light stress or all these other huge, terrible problems that come with the, having this weird experience of having blue light after dark. Once the sun sets outside, there's no blue light on Earth, except for what's made by man.
Yeah. It seems like if you have your EMF completely in check outside of that, adding it on and during a sauna session could almost be like another hormetic stressor if you're in a zero EMF environment outside of that. But then again, how realistic is that in today's landscape?
It is. So we should mention that you can't escape EMFs. You're getting exposed all day long. Is there anything you can do for it? Yes, sauna. So sauna reverses peroxynitrite concentration in the body in 2 ways. Yeah, this is also Dr. Martin Paul's work.
Wow.
So through the production of tetrahydrobiopterin, BH4, that consumes peroxynitrite, and then through what's called vascular shear stress. So when you heat up the body, you stress the cardiovascular system, and the blood vessels regrow and the blood vessel walls get thicker, and you invigorate the tissue with more new blood vessels. So it's called vascular shear stress. So the sauna does that to the blood vessels. And those two things have the effect of reducing peroxynitrite concentration. So sauna is reversing the stressful effect that prolonged EMF exposure causes.
Wow,
so here's a way, that you can heal from it. And so what I say is, engage in these healthy lifestyle habits and, use your sauna, go to bed on time and things like that. But then, live in the modern world and be at peace, knowing that you're taking really good care of your body. And the human body the ancestral human body, when it's really good, has such incredible constitution. It can take so much, it's so resilient. You don't have to worry about, get all obsessive about avoiding EMFs all the time. Let's just know what they are and minimize our exposure if we can, and then let's heal from it and keep our bodies really strong and vigorous.
Yeah. What you were talking about earlier in terms of being outdoors and getting real sunlight exposure, I see it as one of the big mistakes in the biohacking world, because biohackers tend to love to be inside all day. They like to wear a bunch of sunscreen and then sit in front of a red light panel for a few minutes a day and call it complete. But I think that there's so much you're getting from actual light exposure. You're getting multiple different nanometer wavelengths and everything, and also it's going to have different effects than just the one narrow spectrum you're getting.
Yeah, and let's also mention vitamin D. I mean, that is produced through ultraviolet light exposure, which is ionizing radiation. But when you get it from the sun, you're getting all the benefits we talked about with near-infrared light exposure, melatonin production, mitochondrial healing effects in all the cells of the body, and you do get vitamin D. That's why people take vitamin D in the winter, and when you are exposed to an infectious disease, you take vitamin D. It works really well. You can get the best vitamin D you can get is from the sun. I was actually talking to Dr. Mercola about this. He measures all of his levels. He has a lot of data that he tracks, and he was telling me his vitamin D levels were better than anyone that the person who's testing him. He's never seen anyone like him. In terms of having really high optimal, I don't know what the numbers are, but really high optimal vitamin D levels. And he does use my product for sure, but he gets at least 3 or 4 hours of good sunlight every day. He's very disciplined about that, and anyone can do that, and anyone can be that. But it does mean you make some choices. If you're a computer programmer and you're in front of the computer all day, wake up early and get out there at least an hour. Even an hour in the sun in the early morning has a huge positive impact on your health.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of a practice called sun gazing, which is an ancient Ayurvedic practice It's looking directly at the sun only when the UV index is 0, or I think it has to be 0 the first 10-15 minutes of the day, last 10-15 minutes a day. Don't recommend it for other people because always consult your doctor first, but I find that getting outside has so many other benefits, such as even the vitamin D, the supplements you take, they're not in the activated form, and so you're not going to get that, plus a lot of other antimicrobial peptides and beta endorphins, different things you get from natural sunlight.
Well, and why do you think people don't infect each other with cold and flu, outside? Why is it always indoors? It's because the ultraviolet light from the sun hits the water molecules on the earth in the atmosphere and causes the production of peroxides. So the outdoor concentration of peroxides are like 2 to 3 parts per million, and indoors they're 0. That's why in furnaces at home they put in those ultraviolet light filters. You're literally recreating the 2 to 3 parts per million peroxide concentration in the air, and that kills the pathogens in the air. If you have one of those running in your house, I totally recommend that for everybody, actually, especially with the last few years what's been going on. When you have 2 to 3 parts per million peroxide concentration in the air, you can be this close to me and breathe on me, and the bacteria and the viruses in the air are neutralized before they get to me within a 2 to 3 foot span. So that's another reason why it's better to just be outdoors as much as possible. It's just healthier out there. You're less exposed to, the indoor spaces where all this stuff grows, and it's like a petri dish indoors, basically. Yeah.
So light is a big part of your health span, natural or infrared. Anything else you like to do?
I like to engage in intermittent fasting, so I don't eat late and I don't eat early. Mm-hmm. That's mimicking our ancestors' inconstant access to food. I do like cold therapy too. I like the sauna the best. I like the warm, but I like a cold bath, whenever I can. And mostly just being in love, in terms of engaging and making sure your relationships are full of love and delivering, coming from a space of love and delivering that in kindness, and not holding on, not being in judgment, and not being subject to the perceptions of others, just being who you are. And everything seems to work better when you do that. So intentionality, I think, is probably the most important thing. All of these lifestyle changes are easy, but being intentional with everything, with who you talk to, with connecting, looking at people in the eyes, what you eat. Do I want to eat that? Is that going to be good for my body? How do I want to say this to this person? Being intentional is the most powerful healing tool that we have. Love. Love is the highest frequency. Love heals all. So I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah. Brian, we've got to wrap up now, but who have been the 3 most influential teachers on your life and work?
My 2 children, definitely. My 2 sons, my mother and father, my family, yeah, mostly. Dr. Mercola has been a big one too.
Beautiful. It's been a pleasure chatting to you today.
Yeah, thanks, Nick.
I hope that this has been helpful for you. If you enjoyed it, subscribe and hit the thumbs up. I love knowing who's in the 1% committed to reaching their full potential. Comment 1% below so that I know who you are. For all the resources and links, meet me on my website at mindbodypeak.com. I appreciate you and look forward to connecting with you. As a reminder, the information depicted in this video is for information purposes only. Please consult your primary healthcare professional before making any lifestyle changes.